Hi, my name's Joe of The Joe Show. I'm from Edmonton, and I get to perform in this beautiful city of ours. Yeah, I do magic, comedy, and ventriloquism shows, and I'm able to rub shoulders with some of the most amazing people. Join me in this show as we ask entertainers, puppeteers, professionals, and performers questions about how they got started, why they do what they do. Join us.
Thank you.
This is a whole lot of fakery, so they can get a shot of me doing something. I'm going to talk about things like this, like how smart your ties look. It's quite amazing, to be honest with you. Yeah, if anything, you should have a lot of tie envy, to be honest with you. That's what I'm just saying.
Whoever gets the most points, they'll be a winner. Get back to school, baby!
Excellent. Super excited to be here, and I've got an amazing guest. I just want to say thank you, Christian Zyp, for joining me today. This is great. As you know, being a full-time profession of entertaining myself, just the impact arts has just in my life and being able to perform. And I know that you're a drama teacher. Correct. And so why don't you, I guess the first question I would have is, how did you get into that, first of all?
How did I get into being a drama teacher would probably be, the early seeds of being in high school myself, right? I never had an experience really in theater beyond high school. So as a student going from grade 9 to grade 10, that was one of the things that I look forward to the most. I would talk to some of my friends. I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be amazing. That'll be such a fun class. I made little videos and stuff like that at home. So once I got in there, then that's kind of where I caught the bug. I went to several different schools though, just from moving and stuff like that. So I had a bunch of different programs, but most of it was here in Edmonton. So that was kind of the start. And then I started to realize I love performing, but also some people in my family were teachers. So I kind of felt like education might be a better use of my love of theater and arts, and kind of use it to still work with people. Okay. So what's the first performance you ever saw? The first thing that I ever saw, I bet you there are things that I don't remember when I was really young, because there was a lot of tendencies in my family to either go see stuff, or I also had an uncle who was in the arts. He was an actor for a long time in his kind of early days there. So things that I remember was probably one of the first things I remember is my Uncle Phil being in a show at I believe it was the Walter Day Theater. I can't remember what it was, but I know it was something really wacky. That kind of stuck with me. So like a comedy or something like that? Yeah. Okay. I enjoyed going to see those things. And then people like, my Oma would take me to different shows because she was working in an elementary school, and she would take kids to go see a play as part of her kind of library club. So I would go see shows with them too. So I was very much used to seeing stuff, but I wasn't necessarily performing when I was in elementary school. Okay, so never did drama in school much? No, I probably acted out, but I don't think I was acting. Okay, yeah, okay, all right. Now, I know you teach many different drama theater performances. Sure. And so what was some of the favorite, your favorite one you've done? Or do you have a couple favorite? I know it's maybe... Well, it's tough. You're really you're picking children, right? At that kind of point in time. There are things, if I think about what are the most memorable productions I've had, it is really tough to pick. It's always whatever the last one is, I guess, maybe in some ways, but I've done a lot of kind of pop cultural referential stuff. We did Clue on stage. We did, a version of Clueless on stage. That was a lot of fun. We did Princess Bride. We did Pump Up the Volume with Christian Slater. So there's lots of fun elements. Zombie Prom. We're just about really having fun. So every time I have fun, they're all my favorites. Yeah, and don't make me pick, Joe.
And your cast can be like what, from like 20, 40, what's?
I guess so. I think probably one of the biggest ones was Footloose. My very first time I was in high school. There's 50 kids. That was a lot, and it was my first time doing that, so it was pretty intimidating. And then I think at this point now, like we're like a good zone for where you're at would be like 30 to 35 people maximum on stage, and then probably about another 10 to 15 doing other jobs around. So it's definitely at times like you have to be organizationally tight, but it can be herding cats too at the same time, right? But a really fun herding cats.
Yeah. So how long have you been a drama teacher for then?
This has been, I think I'm coming up close on 25 years of like, not necessarily like a drama teacher. That came a little bit later. I would do other things before that, right? Other programs, junior high, English and stuff like that. So yeah, we're coming up on 25 years. I'm sure they'll email me and let me know, oh, you get a nice free gift for your 25 years with Edmonton Catholic. So
you did other things besides performing too. You were a radio show host?
Well, if I look at like, we're talking about outside extracurricular stuff, right? Like for sure. Ever since I would say university, where I met a close group of friends, we decided to do theater on our own. Sometimes it would be adapting different scripts, and sometimes it would be original things that we wrote. So we did things like, we did a show, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, in Emily Murphy Park and another park as well. We did things that were outdoors. We did this kind of strange adaptation of Hamlet called Amlethus in a playground, right? I spent a lot of time in the basement of the Black Dog on White Avenue doing a lot of very independent underground, literally and figuratively theater of things that I wrote that were all kind of like fun and satirical and very genre based. So, you know, me and those friends would do that for many, many years. So it was great. I always looked at my experiences in theater outside of my work as being another fun thing to do, and it was like, you know, a band of friends who were just going on a crazy journey for about 6 weeks and do something that took up way too much of their time, but was a lot of fun to do. And audiences didn't have to be big, so we didn't have to get hugely successful. And so it was a lot of fun, and you know, it was lucrative to the fact that we could go out and have a steak dinner after. And the radio thing, I started probably almost, we're coming up on 20 years on that a bit. I'm with CJSR FM 88, and what I do is I host a show called Moving Radio, which is based on local, Canadian, and independent film. So what I do is I kind of try to look at film as much as I possibly can from Edmonton and Alberta. Sometimes it's festivals, sometimes it's different filmmakers, what's going on in the province. And then I've gotten involved with other festivals. Like I sat on the board of the Edmonton International Film Festival for about a decade. I'm still involved with them, do lots of Q&As for them. I've helped out with things like Northwest Fest and done some Q&As with them, and a little festival is called Dead Fest. And you know, anything that's kind of film-wise around, you know, sometimes if people ask me and I'm lucky enough to be asked, I go and, you know, moderate conversations basically.
Okay. So basically just a big collection of everything almost, hey? Kind of thing.
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, look, I'm really into two things specifically, and I've catered my entire life to really focus on them. I'm like, oh, what do I like? I like pretending on stage, so let's just make a career that focuses on that. What else do I like? I like to watch movies. Okay, what can I do just extracurricularly that will get me to talk to more people that make movies? I'll do that. And that won't pay me, but it's still great. Like, you do it because you love it. That's the biggest thing.
That's exactly.
I do the job because I love it. I mean, I really appreciate the pay, and I don't want them to stop paying me, but I only do these things because I love it.
Yeah, that's great. I know that, you know, for performing, you know, we've got a lot of people, and hopefully this show too is helping those that are just starting out, you know, something new in their lives, and they're saying, hey, I want to get into the arts, I want to get into performing, whether it's puppeteer, magic, comedy, whatever all these different things are. What is one thing for you that you felt your career really took off when you started doing this? What would that be? Like, if you could give some advice, like, this is the one thing that once I started doing this, I noticed that my career started to grow.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any specific key to, like, what is the success to making a career successful, because I think, like, if you want to define success, that's so many different levels, right? I mean, immediately people probably outside of your sphere are going to look at it as like, oh, it's money. So you made a lot of money, so you must be successful. Oh, I recognize you, therefore I must, you know, you were successful, right? that's like, I don't look at it in that regard whatsoever. I look at it more about you need to be passionate about what you do, and if it can be something that you can rely on as a way to survive, to live, and to thrive, fantastic, right? But I'm always about, you know, finding what you're passionate about and following it. So that's what I've kind of done with my life, and I've been really fortunate that I've been able to take that and parlay it into a career that's incredibly supportive and that I'm really lucky to have. So I don't know, I guess passion is the number one thing to say. If you're looking, you gotta follow your heart, and also understand that it may not take you exactly where you think you're going to go either.
Right.
I don't know that I ever envisioned a lot of the things that I did necessarily, but they're all worthwhile, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think passion's huge, because I find even in like the magic, people sometimes have all the bells and whistles, but they don't necessarily have the passion to perform it. And you can have like a $4,000 trick, but if you're not making that connection, that passion that comes out, you know, and making it unique and being you through that, right? You know, that trick falls flat, and it doesn't matter how much money you spend on it. You're just not there, right? And I think that's the connection of you know, having that, which is very, very important. So
and none of the things that I've done have been like, oh, well, you're better than you, so therefore I'm going to gravitate towards this. Like, whether it's all the shows I've talked about personally, or even with students and things like that, I really elevate heart and commitment and support, and like I said, passion over everything else. Like that's something that will lead to success eventually, depending on however, like I said, you see it. But that's why I don't really look at it as like, oh, this is a talent competition. I'm like, it's not. It's a heart, it's a commitment, it's a friendship competition, I guess. Who can be the best friend?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great too. What is the worst advice you've ever had? As a performer, is there something that somebody said, like, do this, and you're like, I'm so glad I didn't listen to that, or maybe you did listen to it, you know, it just totally was like, that was the worst mistake ever?
Well, I mean, when we talk about this idea of what is bad advice that you've gotten, I don't think I've ever really gotten anything terrible that has led me down a bad path. I think if anything, like, if people are going to get advice, and I don't think I ever really got this, is it's more about people trying to dissuade you from what you want to do. You have to make your own decision at a certain point in time as to like whether or not something is worth your time, or whether it's worth your energy or the commitment to it. So I feel like I never got those walls in front of me, right? And I try not to build them up for other people either, because you never know what they can do, where it's going to lead them, right? You have to be realistic at a certain point about where you can go, but that's why I don't think I've really ever gotten like terrible advice necessarily.
All right.
Right? Have you given me any bad advice?
I don't think I've given you bad advice.
Okay. Do you want to give me some bad advice now so that I can have some bad advice at some point?
Well, I know for me, some bad advice was that I was looking at doing like multiple shows. Because I just love the idea of like going to a birthday party and having, like, I have like 10 different themes, like dinosaur, pirate, superhero, knight and princess, all these different shows. And the advice was, Joe, you can't do that. You know, you need to have just one show. And I'm so glad I didn't listen to that, because having multiple shows has allowed me to be in so many different venues, from like performing on the pirate ship, you know, at West Edmonton Mall, or being in a dinosaur park, you know, or doing these different things. And I get to do all that because I've got these multiple concepts and multiple ideas. And so I think that was a huge thing for me, being able to do that. And when I do a birthday party, then somebody can hire me because they saw me, and I have a different show, right? So that was good things. So I think that's advice for me, I would say. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's good.
No, it does. It's just, it's hard to trust yourself sometimes, because you're really taking a leap. Like,
and it's a lot to carry in, a lot to have repertoires and ideas and stuff too as well. But I was like, you know, I want to do this because it's just so much more. So I can pretty much fit the venue or the need that people want. Which is great. So it's cool too. When has your audience moved you? And it might not be an audience, I say, maybe like your kids, your students, right? You know, when is there a time they really moved you?
Oh, Joe, like all the time, right? Like, I think, you know, there's never been a time where, like, of course, if you're on stage and you're like, oh my God, they're all laughing at me. This is so wonderful. I feel great about me. I'm not gonna lie, like that's always a lovely thing to have. When a moment works that you worked on, conceived, created, and it comes off, then you feel great about that. But I mean, way bigger than that is always every year with students, right? Like it seemed like those are the moments where I'm like, oh, I'm incredibly moved by that. I'm moved when I'm watching it all come together in the last weekend. I'm moved when we're all together in a circle and we're praying and we're like, okay, like get us through tonight and the rest of the week. That's huge. Like I'm just like,
Yeah.
because it's so much emotion and build-up. I'm in the dark in the back sometimes and I'm just like, I'm laughing sometimes, but like I don't do much because hopefully I've set everyone up for success. So I just kind of sit there and kind of watch and kind of monitor. Then there's moments like that where I'm like, oh my God, these people, they're so great. And I'm just, I consider myself so lucky.
Yeah.
So it's all genuine tears, to be honest with you. And I'm not really ever afraid of that in front of other people.
Yeah.
I wish I was more articulate when I was like emotional like that, but I get emotional all the time about that stuff, right?
Yeah. Okay. I know that you've overcome some major hurdles in your life.
Sure.
And so I thought maybe if you want to just kind of share about that and talk about that.
Right. I mean, look, I look at it as like when we talk about hurdles that you overcome in your life, I hate to like put mine above anyone else's because I think that just by looking at me, as you kind of see that I'm someone who is disabled and that clearly has had some sort of physical afflictions, that you look at that and people might say like, oh my gosh, it's so much worse, or it's like, I can't say anything because you've been through so much worse. You know, there is that kind of thing. I feel like that, like more often than not, there are people that are carrying around things that aren't as obvious, and they're just as valid or as impactful or as or leave as many scars as what getting meningitis did to me. So, you know, the short story of it is like I'm 46 years old. I'm just going about my business, and within 36 hours, I feel like I've got flu-like symptoms, to literally like ushering myself off to an emergency room. And at that point, it becomes, okay, like this isn't terrible, but they're just gonna put an IV in me and I'll be okay. No one knows exactly what's wrong with me, but unbeknownst to me or my wife, my kidneys are failing, and basically my blood is gonna go septic at any moment, where it's gonna try to fight off this ridiculously strong virus that I contract from who knows where, you know, and was more than likely airborne, and that it's rare for somebody at my age to get. So at that point, I'm a guy just laying there ready to be intubated, which already freaks me out. And then, to be honest with you, it's like 6 weeks later before I really become lucid. And then that's just the beginning of the journey. At that point, I wake up, and because of the septic blood, there's amputations to both my legs below the knee. There's an amputation to my right thumb. I've had skin grafts over my, a lot of my body. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's mostly my extremities of my arms and my legs, and that's all skin from my back. They peel it off and then they put it on you, right? That's an entire process. I have damage and scarring to a lot of my tendons and nerve damage on my arms, so my hands function is low on my right hand, and on my left hand it's good, it's okay, but it's not what it used to be. Like I can't really pull up a rope or something like that, something thin. So there's that. I had the kidney failure, so I had to get a kidney transplant, and that was about 3 years ago, so that's an amazing gift that I was given by somebody. So, you know, all these things together, they sound like it's a massive pile of issues. And those are just the physical ones I'm talking about, much less the mental and emotional scars that kind of come with that are the ripple effect of getting sick. It's not just me, it's my family.
Right. Sorry. Wow. I think the amazing thing, because I'm blessed that I have 3 children in your classes already, and I'm a father of 9, and you say you're going to teach all 9 of them. So that's the plan one day, right? And I just love that they say the one thing is that you're just your perseverance, and you kept going through this all. How did you do that? What kept you going?
I don't know, like it's so hard because, you know, when you're at somewhere where you're in recovery, that's all you see. is people that have different things that they've had to go through. Like, I looked at myself and I was like I'm lucky, because I see this 65-year-old grandmother, 70 years old, who's had to have her second leg amputated below the knee, and it's really difficult for her to ever really come back at a level that she can. So it almost seems like an impossible journey, whereas I've got so much room to grow. I felt like I was like the young guy there, right? So when people kind of ask how do you get through this? I think that the biggest thing is that we really minimize our own internal strength and how much we can accomplish. And it's not even just about being you got to think positive all the time. It's about just understanding that everything we do takes work. Whether it's personal or it's artistic or it's relationships, all these things take work. And, continually believing that there's a goal in front of you, whatever it may be, and if you're moving that goalpost, that's great, to keep reaching for that. So as much as it looks like, oh man, I could never have gone through that, I always tell people, I'm you'd be surprised how resilient we all are. But you just don't know sometimes unless you're kind of pushed to that limit. So yeah, unfortunately I've been pushed to that limit, but I see other people and I'm like I feel that way sometimes, and then I have to check that as well, because I say we're all going through something different. So
and the courage just comes from your family.
I have no magic answer. I'm so sorry. There's no clear cut.
This is it, eh? Wow.
This is the thing. Support, love.
Yeah.
Belief in yourself. Those are the big things.
Yeah. Possibly faith too, right? Or things too.
Yeah, and faith of the people around me. All those things come together.
Yeah. Wow. One thing that talking to fellow students and things too, and just knowing you for the few years I've kind of known you and stuff as well, you really see people on the sidelines. You go after people that are sitting by themselves, or people that are just maybe don't have the most friends, and you invite them to join your team. And have you always been this way, or is maybe because of what you went through, you just see kids hurting differently, or you just kids in need and you just reach out to them, or just it's sometimes maybe a different mindset, you know what I mean? To wrap your head around sometimes thinking about that, but you purposely do that, and I hear that again and again. You want to kind of talk about that? I
don't know. It's difficult for me to kind of say whoa, why are you looking for specific people? I think my biggest thing always is that I look at myself as I'm in a position to help, right? Mm-hmm. I'm in a position to lead. I'm in a position to hopefully inspire. I'm in a position to help people make connections. So if I see that somebody may need that, I'm like, hey, here's a great opportunity for someone. Because I think that's one of the biggest things, is sometimes you just have to open opportunities to people. It's when you're in such a large social place, let's say for example a school and high school, when you're going through 3 incredibly formative years of kind of building up who you are, it's not the be all end all, but they're 3 big years for you. And you start to get a better grasp of who you are, that I feel like sometimes if you feel lost, it's helpful when you have somebody maybe reaches out. And I've tried with some people and sometimes it does not work, and lots of people where it has worked. So I don't know. I just look at it as I'm constantly trying to look at what we do. Is there's no scoreboard. Really, the scoreboard is how many people can we get involved, right? And the more that we do, the better. And the more that we, help them make connections, the more that we inspire and we give them a meaningful moment, then that's where you really win, right? The applause is nice, but what you're going to remember at the end is the connections you made with people.
Right.
And if they fraction after grade 12, that's okay too, right? But at least they've had, some connections and understand that that's all possible.
Yeah. Wow. No, it's amazing that you just still enjoy and keep on going, and that's just the important thing in life, right? Just to find, passion and purpose, and you definitely find that, and it's evident, because you really do make an impact in the kids' lives. Like in my own kids' lives, they just think the world of you, and it's awesome to hear, because they just, it's just neat how you're pouring into their lives, and you are making a huge difference, which is amazing. So
the thing is, see, I'm lucky to have other people.
Yeah.
Like, it's not about like, oh, I'm the guy, I'm helping you. I'm like, we all help each other.
Yeah.
Like, it's a back and forth. Like, they're just as important.
Yeah. Yeah. I was told,
so it's not me, it's us.
Yeah.
It's always us.
I was told to ask about a story where you dislocated your shoulder at a show, and like you didn't, like, I guess you want to tell that?
Oh, sure, yeah, it's not pretty.
Oh, yeah.
Nor is it really, like, insane. Like, well, I mean, this was my first, like, I just got back from a year off of recovering from everything. So, I'm in the dark. And I'm just watching what's going on stage, and
so
everything's
performing,
great.
Like they're actually doing
the
show?
Kids are, so we're at Trinity, and they're performing. So I don't know, I just did something. I got up, and I was still a bit of a like baby giraffe on my prosthetic legs, and for whatever reason something happened, and I tripped, or I got my shoe, and I just kind of like slow fell into a desk. So then when I slow fell, it kind of just like and I couldn't get myself up enough. So then it kind of wrenched my shoulder. And what happened is that I didn't know it at the time, but I had separated my shoulder. I was like, oh man, I can't lift this thing up. I'm like, it should be okay. Maybe it's not bad. So I'm really quiet about it because it happens in between, like at the very end of one scene, and then we've got a third scene coming up. Yeah. So it's just kind of like, I can't really move around. So I told Peggy Moore, who was there with me, I'm like, I'm just gonna have to take a sec here. I think I hurt myself. Like, is somebody in physed around in the gym where they can check it maybe? Or can we get some ice or something like that?
No.
So I'm sitting there and watching the last, 15 to 20 minutes of what the scene is, and it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Like, it's really bad, the pain at this point. So I just kind of minimize it. I don't really tell anybody, and I'm just kind of thinking like, we just need to get out of here, Peg. And Peg is sweet. Takes me out. We go to down to the hospital, not too far to go.
Yeah.
And I'm in the emergency room. So now you're in the emergency room waiting and waiting and waiting. And I'm just like, oh my, do they not know I have a separated shoulder? I'm like, but everybody's in trouble, but my head is screaming at me like, do you know what is going through my arm? So I finally get into the room, right? They give me the shot. I'm like loopy after. I get up and I'm like, okay, so when are they doing this? And I'm like, it's over. They popped it back in. Like, they had to knock me out to pop it back in. Like, I thought it was okay, but it was bad. Like, I pulled it out of its socket, and it hasn't quite been the same since. Like, I was at wheelchair rugby on Saturday, and every once in a while I move, and I was like, boom! It's like, okay, push it back. So.
Well, I think the thing is that you didn't draw attention to it. Like, here you are, you've hurt yourself, but yet the show must go on. Literally,
right?
It
was painful.
So you're just like, I'm going to let them finish their scene. I'm just going to sit here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell anybody I've dislocated my shoulder until they're done, right?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Look, I'm in ICU, and I'm like, do the show. Like, if I could have spoke when I was in ICU, I'd be like, you got to finish this.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole thing, right? Like, and I just never feel like in those kind of situations, I don't want to highlight a lot of attention to myself. That's why I want to keep it quiet, because I know people would be overly concerned, and that's just something you have to kind of like manage when you're in a situation like myself, or maybe other people would be. Like, when are you comfortable with getting that help? When can you get it? When do you need to take it? Yeah.
Wow. You want a drink of water? You're doing okay there?
Sure, I'm all right.
I don't know if you had time in the questions. I kind of asked for 2 truths and a lie, like 2 stories that were true, 1 story that's false, and I got to kind of guess what story that is. You want to do that? Does that sound good, or kind of fun? You have some fun stories there? Or?
I don't know. I'm so I would play that game sometimes, and then I abandoned it at a certain point because it didn't go well in a room. I don't really want to talk about the story necessarily, but I don't mind it. Why don't you ask me, like, what's the song for the soundtrack of my life? I feel like that's better.
Perfect.
Nobody cares about the lies I could tell. Like, I could say things like I used to say where I was like, I met Steven Tyler, and I talk about that, and the kids are like, who is that? And I'm like, that doesn't matter. And then I would tell them I was on Degrassi, and I wasn't, right?
That's right.
And so, because it aged right, so
right.
I was like, look back. I'm like, I'm way before Drake, right? This is not.
Yeah, no, I understand too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay. I could sell it, trust me, buddy. But I'm just like,
yeah. So what would be the soundtrack of your life? You know, if you had one song to pick, what would it be?
All right. Well, look, anyone that knows anything about me, Joe, and you can keep this in or not, is that I have a shameless, deep affection for all things Van Halen.
Okay.
So it's the soundtrack of my life, basically, and I have a deep addiction problems. I think it's addiction probably at this point. But you know, I mean, like I look at music as like, wow, like that was one of the things where I was like, that got me through mentally some like tough stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Like you listen to things and sometimes it just like takes you away. Sometimes it gives you memories. Sometimes it's inspirational. It was all kinds of things. Sometimes it kind of like, you know, it emotionally charges you up, right? Yeah. But if I had to pick one thing, I would be hideously expensive to do it. But I would pick like Van Halen's Right Now, right? Because I'm just like, oh, you know what? As much as the lyrics are not like extremely deep, it's about like capitalizing on moments and realizing what's around you. And you know, there may be things ahead of you that are kind of scary, that might be frightening, that might be overwhelming, but there are things that you can get through and to kind of take advantage of moments in your life.
Why don't we just, the last question I'll ask you is, what advice do you have for someone just getting into the arts and maybe someone that's been in the arts for a long, long time?
Right.
So those are two different things. So someone who's been performing, like, you know, I've been performing 5-6 years. I guess I'm starting to get more and more professional, but what advice do you have for somebody that's just brand new and somebody that, you know, is been around for a bit, you know, and been doing things?
Sure. Well, for anybody that's new, if I was talking about like students per se, if I was going to give them a piece of advice, you know, it sounds cheesy, but it's really about following your heart and also trying to explore as many different avenues as you can creatively, because I always think that if you try to make yourself as well-rounded as possible, that then not only are you enriched by what you're doing, hopefully, and you find different avenues that inspire you that you might not have thought would have. So I try to be like, I tell them, I'm like, look, you don't just be like a 3-tool player or a 5-tool player. You want to be like a 21-tool player, and then you can start picking. It's like tool 7 is great for me right now, but tool 4 I'm going to go back to at some point, and it's amazing. Like, you find things that inspire you. I've got a friend that does like acrobatic stuff, kind of circus stuff, and I don't think she ever would have really chose to do that at first. It was kind of like stunt work got to that, right? You know, I had a friend who was like very much into writing and directing, and now he does a lot of cartoon voices, and that's led him to be able to write for different shows. So I think that, you know, sometimes it's about trying to explore as many different avenues as you possibly can that inspire you and follow that. And I think if I was to give somebody advice who was already in that position, I don't know. I mean, look, you just said I've only been for 5 or 6 years. I would say, like, never minimize yourself in what you do. I think if there's a healthy amount of ego where you have to sometimes, I will never accept a lot of kindness. I generally deflect it at times, not to be mean, but you know, that kind of sarcasm, or at least creating a joke after, is a real defense mechanism, because I'm not, like, as much as I like to be in front of people, I don't necessarily want to be highlighted a lot in that way, and I don't feel like it's good for me to keep believing that. So that advice is to, like, never minimize who you are, at least to yourself, because I know, like, I think I have a pretty good awareness and self-awareness of what my worth is to other people, hopefully, and within my own profession and creatively, I think, and I try not to overvalue that. But I never, like, internally minimize it. I'm always externally minimizing things. Right? I'm just like, keep your head low when it's out there, but, you know, constantly believing in yourself and knowing what your own worth is.
Wow. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming out today. It's been awesome. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good too. Excellent. Our thought for today is, don't let success go to your head and don't let failure go to your heart. As a performer, it is an amazing thing to be able to perform in front of a couple thousand people. But that should never make your ego so big that you're the end-all be-all, that when you walk in the room, all of the attention is on you. People don't want to book performers like that. People don't want to work with performers like that. Don't be so successful that you're number one and that everybody has to think that about you. At the same time, you will make mistakes and you will mess up. You'll get the odd person maybe who doesn't like your show or maybe some feedback, and you can take it and work on it, maybe think it over. But at the same time, if you fail, don't let that go to your heart. Learn from it, grow from it. Don't let success go to your head. Don't let failure go to your heart.